Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. This week's video is talking about how we can take control of our own lives. And I know the metaphors that I use on this channel are just next level incredible. So I'm going to be relying on a metaphor to kind of work through that. And there is no judgment in this video as usual. I am just trying to change some perspectives. So that's what this video is about today. I'm going to be talking about taking control of your own life and how that can be problematic and also not be. So I'm going to try and put that in a bit of context for you guys today. So if you're interested, then keep watching. So I know on this channel I have used some incredible metaphors in the past, usually for simple things. In my talking about why we judge video, I talked about trees. I do like to use a good metaphor. This video will rely heavily on one incredible metaphor. It's time, my friends. So, I don't like the analogy of life being a journey because it implies that you're going somewhere and that somewhere that you're going is better than where you are now. However, for the purposes of this video, it kind of fits in well, so I'm going to use it. But the awesome metaphor is that I want to imagine that your life is a car. Da, 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 da. So, if you consider when you are a child, you are a passenger within your caregiver's car. And obviously, as a young child, you'll be in a car seat, strapped in, wrapped up, like no control whatsoever. You cannot influence where that car is going, the decisions that your caregivers are making about where they're going to live or how money is managed or the food on the table. All that kind of stuff is stuff that as a child you don't have control over. Basically, you are a passenger within their car. And as you get older, maybe you might have a little bit more authority within that car. You know, maybe you might be able to say that you don't want to go a certain way. I don't want to move house. I don't want to do that. And maybe you may have more of a voice to be able to ask for the things that you need from that car journey. So you might need snacks or water, or you might need to go a different direction with an interest of yours that may come into that. So as you get older, you become a more communicative passenger and you hold a bit more weight. And it may be that there are points when you're actually sitting in the front passenger seat and you have a lot more weight over where the car goes, but ultimately you're not sitting within your own car. You may also be taught how to read a map and how to read road signs so that you can question whether is that the right way to go, and you can have that bit more authority as a child and step into more of like an equal balance, usually as you get older. And then comes a stage where, as a teenager, you start to get an interest in the way that the car works. You know, you're watching how your caregivers are driving and you think, oh, maybe I want to learn how to drive myself. And it's a process where you kind of build up the information about navigation, how to navigate, and then you're looking at, oh, they're using that pedal then and they're braking then. And you learn the ways of the road and how that works. But largely, the direction that you take, the roads that you go down, they are all dictated by your caregivers as a child. Now, when you step out into the world on your own, when you start to become an adult, you start to learn to drive. So in terms of life, you may have arguments with friends and try and deal with it in a different way. You learn for yourself what businesses are like when you start to work. You start to learn how to manage your own life by yourself. You don't go back to your caregivers and ask them for advice constantly. You may do for a while, but in the same way that you're learning to drive a car, you would seek reassurance that you're doing the right thing from a driving instructor. So it's that same thing with life when we start to learn about the world of work, how to manage money. Maybe your caregivers will support you in learning how to manage your own money and help you in that way, and then you can manage money on your own. So it's all of those things where you're in a process of learning, and it's learning how to drive your own car, because eventually as an adult you will get into your own car and you will take that car off on your own routes, down your own path. You'll go the places that you want to go, and that's kind of the natural progression of childhood and then that transitional period when you're kind of a teenager and you're learning stuff and you're finding things out for yourself and you're learning how to drive, and then adulthood when you are driving your own car. That all sounds pretty easy and pretty simple, right? So I want to talk about when you are not given those tools as a child when you are a passenger in your caregiver's car. So if you are a passenger in your caregiver's car and you're never allowed to ask for snacks or ask for water or read a map or know where you're going even, you're just kind of taken on this route that you have no control over, you get very comfortable in that. You get very comfortable in knowing that someone else knows the way better than you can. Someone else can manage that better than you can. And the roads that they take you down, the routes that they go down, feel safe. So it kind of backs up that evidence that they know better than you. Now, if you never learn to drive your own car, the prospect of driving your own car is terrifying because you've never even read a map. So I see this a lot in my work. The idea of driving their own car and having that control over their own life and managing their own way is just terrifying because they've never even picked up a map. They have always been led by other people. And you often see children who have some kind of trauma who then just don't learn to drive their car, and then they're very likely later on in life to end up in relationships that also contain trauma. You repeat what you know. So if you weren't empowered when you were a child, you will not be an empowered adult who is able to take control of their own life. Imagine then that you've gone from sitting in your caregiver's car where they dictate the route that you go, where they know better than you do, where there's no point even questioning or arguing, you just trust them implicitly. And then maybe it's time for you to get in your own car, but you look at this car and you don't even know how to drive it. And then someone else comes along in their car and they offer you a ride. Now, how much easier would it be to just get in that person's car, to be a passenger in someone else's car where they're in control of where it goes and you don't have to question because you just feel safe with them? You don't have to learn to drive your own car. You can just jump into someone else's car and carry on being a passenger without having to learn to navigate, learn to drive, or any of those things. You can just carry on this journey. Now, it's not the journey that you would probably choose, but you can't even read a map, so you don't know any different. And this is what we see when people often have trauma, where it's so easy to jump into somebody else's car and to follow their own path for life. It's not what you would choose, but it's good enough. It's okay. It means as well you're not on your own in a car. You've never been on your own before, and you don't have to be because you can be supported by these other people in this other car that have just picked you up. And maybe you'll have your own family, and maybe that will become your family car. But you don't even talk about other routes that you would want to go or other places that you may want to go because you've never even picked up a map. So driving your own car, taking control of your own life, is not just as simple as do it. And I see a lot of these kind of motivational videos that talk about how you can step into that without really understanding how intrinsically difficult that can be for some people. And you'll also see people who perhaps they are in someone's car and it's starting to break down. Your relationship isn't doing too great, or things with your parents are rocky and this car is slow and it's clunky and it's making this funny noise and this car isn't great. So then when you see someone who comes along in a Ferrari, they're in a nice car, you could just jump straight into that car. And I see this a lot with people who have had a relationship breakdown and they go, well, it was the car. That person's car was shit. But this person has a Ferrari and that's a better car and they can look after me better than this person did in that car because that's a better car. There could be all sorts of reasons why that previous car was damaged and why it broke down. It could be nothing to do with the fact that that person's car was crap. It could be more to do with you didn't take regular maintenance over that car. You didn't share responsibility for that car. One person continually drove that car for however long and that ran them down. And then they had a couple of car accidents because they're the only ones driving. I guess I would also say that there is nothing wrong with getting into somebody else's car and with having a life that is led by someone else, my issue comes when you are not empowered in yourself, and that is not choiceful. When you haven't made the choice because your choice has been impacted by your past or by your lack of knowledge. You know, if you know how to navigate, if you can communicate your needs within that car, if you can dictate some routes and places you want to go as well, and you can share that journey, great. There's also the idea that you can learn to drive your own car, you can be in control of your own life, driving your own car, knowing your own way, and then you can meet someone else who has a car, but you like your own car. And sometimes we can be really dismissive of people because we're so in our own life that we don't want anything to mess with that. We don't want anyone to be dictating journeys and messing with that equilibrium. We just want to be safe and secure and happy in our own car, doing our own thing. And again, that's okay. But when you meet someone who you want to do that with, you don't also have to share a car. You don't have to jump into theirs. They don't have to jump into yours. You can be a household that has 2 cars, and sometimes you go off on your own car, sometimes they go off in theirs, sometimes you share a car, sometimes you may even drive their car for a while. That's just being in a relationship where 2 people manage their own interests and their own responsibility for themselves, and then also come together, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be this is the one car that leads our life for that one party within a relationship. So that may have made sense. I'm kind of hoping that it did, but it may not have done. Now, at whatever point you are along that journey, you're doing great. And if you're just watching this video and you're just questioning, why do I feel like I'm not in control? Maybe this will bring some awareness into your life where you can question if you're making many decisions. You know, question if, you're happy with things. Are you communicating when you're not happy? Are you communicating when you have an idea that might work differently? Is that communication reciprocal? Are they open to that communication between the 2 of you? And also with your caregivers as well, like if you feel like you have no control over your life because you're following your caregiver's model, maybe start to question, start to wonder. And often we look at other people and they seem to just have their shit together. And I have talked about this before, that we often compare our own situations to other people, and we think that people have their stuff together and that they are managing way, way better than we are. If you look at someone and they look like they're managing, what tools were they given as a child when they were going through that transitional phase? What tools were they given? What tools have they then given themselves later on in life to be able to effectively manage that in that way? Are they tools that you've been given? Or are they tools that you now recognise are missing in your life? And that has been pivotal for me to realise, well, actually, some people have had a lot more guidance, a lot more support in their lives to be able to manage things a lot better. They're more resilient than I am. I could go deeper into this. We know that there are also personality typing and attachment styles that are more likely to just sit back and be a passenger and be very happy with that and not to question and not to ask. Growth is all about questioning. It's all about getting curious and asking those questions. And with this video, I just really wanted to open that up a bit. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's my video for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you for the continued love and messages and views on my video from last week. It has been a very strange week with lots of messages from people, but it's also been amazing. So thank you guys for the continued support for that one, and I will catch you guys in the next one.